Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday to you. Thanks for being here with me on this fantastic Monday morning. So happy to be alive, be here with you, to see you out there with me. Please send me a little notice. Let me know you're there. That'd be appreciated. Appreciated. So let's begin our morning session as we do with our breathing practice. We breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, with a little hold in between. That's in through the nose, hold, and out through the mouth. So let's begin. In, hold, out. Hold, out. In, hold, out. In, hold, out. In, hold, out. Hi, everybody. Come on back in your body. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, move your shoulders a little bit, bat your eyes. Here we are. It's great to be here this morning. Thank you again for being here. If you're out there, please send me a message. Let me know you're there. This morning, I want to talk about spiritual or material principles, how it is that we guide our living experience through this body out into the world we live in. To begin, it's necessary to always reiterate so that it's fresh and present to us that I am spirit having a human experience, or I am spirit being carried in a human body, a material experience. I am a spiritual being human. It's important to have that distinction present for us always. It's imperative to remember that always. It must be the first consideration in every case. We are conditioned, trained over lifetimes to default to emotionalism, emotional experience. And in the emotional experience, good morning, Shireen. It's good to see you. In the emotional experience, we lean towards feelings that express our fear of not enough, of lack. And in those experiences, when we allow ourselves to go there, we are concerned only with this body. And being concerned only with the body leaves all of the real value of each experience, each spirit, each essence of being out. It's very, something happens to someone we love, and the world takes over and does its thing. Good morning, Jim. The world takes over and does its thing, and the outcome that manifests is not to our material liking. It doesn't seem fair, and we become angry, or we become hurt, or we become jealous, or we become envious, or we become any one of all of those less than desirable attributes, those material attributes. And we take action. And we take action out of that to fulfill our egos. We literally release some of the tension from the emotions by engaging the ego to take an action of retribution in most cases. Yet, the option of choosing a spiritual action, the spiritual principles involved, allows us to remain in neutral, if you will, to remain unengaged materially. It allows us to act calmly without expressing revenge or looking for retribution or getting even or I'll show them. I'll show them who they're dealing with. Right. At the end of that, in every case, one ends up losing. Every case. Eventually, it returns and goes the other way. Because in the three-dimensional world, in the world of physics, in this three-dimensional plane, this action initiates that action. In the spiritual plane, those activities in the material plane do not take place. So if I were to look at the situation, whatever it may be, something happens. It happens to me or it happens to someone in my life, and I disagree with the outcome for whatever reason, excuse me, usually emotional and or egoic, or I look at the action, I remain neutral, and I be with that action from a place of honesty or a place of hope or a place of faith or a place of courage, or from a place of integrity, or from a place of willingness, or a place of humility, or a place of brotherly love, maybe from a place of discipline, or perseverance, or awareness, or service, all of which are spiritual principles, then the outcome does not have an action reaction eventuality. One must choose, and choose regularly, choose every day, choose multiple times every day to act out of a set of principles, either spiritual principles or material principles. Material principles are acting out of the conditioning of our material consciousness, which is emotions and ego and pride and self preservation, ownership, and we know from a spiritual point of being that all of those things are already always taken care of. Already always taken care of, regardless of the situation. We realize when we embrace the reality that I am a spiritual being, being human, that should the human aspect of the experience cease to exist in a three-dimensional plane, the spiritual experience is forever and never goes anywhere. The fear that we experience is a conditioned fear that if the body stops breathing, I am dead. My brothers and sisters, my beloveds, I am here to tell you, when I stop breathing, this body goes into a state of non existence, but that which empowers this body continues on. And there is nothing to be concerned about. The discomfort of the body is the discomfort of the body. Generally speaking, from a spiritual point of view, acknowledging that from a spiritual place of being, acknowledging that generally makes it more easily managed. I hear of people who are older, who are 90 years old. I saw President Jimmy Carter on Facebook yesterday with a black eye and this and that and the other, and it says if he fell down at 93 or 4 years old and, hurt himself with a bruise and whatever, and the next day he is out with Habitat for Humanity hammering nails. So it's a matter of choice when coming from a spiritual state of being. And after watching President Carter over these years, I realized that one of his primary states of function is service. Service to his community, service to his fellow man, service to his spiritual perception. We are free when we choose to operate out of freeing principles. Once we are able to honestly embrace for ourselves a state of being which is spiritual, we can look at this body and we can look at the experiences of this body and we can act upon them in such a way as to give love and understanding to every aspect of its existence. So let me just an example just went through my head. And the example is there's someone who has a terminal illness, who has a life partner who they that have the terminal illness are devoted to, and that person is devoted to them. And they have a couple of options. And one of the options is to share that knowingness of the body's not going to function much longer with that person, or to withhold that information. If the relationship between those two human beings who happen to be spiritual experiences, so if the relationship between those independent sparks of God is honest, with integrity, then the acknowledging of the impending demise of this material body can be celebrated between them. The opportunity to say all there is to say, the opportunity to amend whatever it is in the individual that requires amending, to celebrate the life that was experienced between the two, to acknowledge how wonderful it was to have that experience, to acknowledge the manifestation of that experience, how it shows up into the world, or to keep it secret and have it found out at the last minute and to have strife and struggle, or to simply leave that devotion without any comment whatsoever. I'll leave it to you to say which is the appropriate choice in this life. Hi, Mary Lee. Once we own, I am a spiritual being. Once we own, I am eternal. Once we live as though this is the only moment in time, our lives, our three-dimensional material lives, take on an entirely different view than when we are living out of fear, the fear that I'm not enough, the fear that I'm not going to breathe forever. Those are the fundamental fears. Those are the fundamental principles of the material consciousness. That's what happens. And we must choose. And then once we choose, we have to discipline ourselves, our material selves, to continuously reboot to the spiritual consciousness, the spiritual set of principles. Every time the thing comes up that says, that's not right, we have to reboot. Every time it comes up, I'll show them. We must reboot and we must return to honesty. We must return to hope and courage and integrity in every case. And we continuously reboot to the spiritual principle until the spiritual principles are manifest and are the primary operational state of the individual in this three-dimensional plane. And all is well. And all is well. One day I was taught, a teacher taught me. I didn't grasp it on my own. A teacher taught me that it's okay to have a car because a car gives you the mobility to serve. The car gives me the mobility to serve. The car allows me to feed the body so the body can be strong, so the body and the spirit can serve. The car allows me to go to the hardware store to buy items to maintain the dwelling that keeps the roof over my head because I'm a delicate being on the planet Earth and I cannot live in the weather successfully and remain of service. Every single aspect of this life, when looked at, can be seen as spiritual strengthening of the material experience. This requires discipline, which is a spiritual principle. I am the presence of God wherever I am. You are the presence of God wherever you are. We collectively are the presence of God right here, right now. The trouble of the material experience disappears in the presence of God. If I am troubled, I am operating out of material principles. Remember that. That's important. That is the cue to reboot. I salute you as the presence of God wherever you are. I acknowledge you as myself, the presence of God. Namaste. Namaste.